Good evening and welcome to the Baltimore County Planning Board in our first work session associated with the comprehensive zoning map process for 2020. This session is really geared to be a summary of what has taken place to date and to discuss this unprecedented situation that we're in and how we've had to alter our process to meet the legislative requirements of our CZMP process. Before I discuss our summaries, I'd like to turn this session over to our Director of Planning, Mr. Peter Gottwald, who will bring you up to date on what our experience has been to date. He's going to provide you a summary of the way the staff has approached this, and then I will make some additional comments and provide additional information based on the input that we've received from each of the districts of the county. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our Director of Planning, Peter Gottwald.
Thank you, and good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, guests. Before we begin the public testimony review, I wanted to have a chance to go over some of the department's role during this comprehensive zoning map process. But first and foremost, I wanted to thank everyone, citizens, property owners, business owners, everybody else, including especially the board members, for their patience and understanding as we work through this unprecedented times. Next slide, please. On September 3rd, 2019, we began a process of accepting applications for the CZMP. The department reviewed 308 applications totaling almost 5,000 acres. As part of this process, we wanted to be transparent and to create an environment where people had a way to interact with some of the information that was being processed with the department. So we created this dashboard that you see on your screen now. Not only was there an interactive map that linked you to the log of issues, but there was also a continuing process of providing additional information. As agency reviews were completed, they were posted. When staff reports were completed, they were posted for everyone's viewing. And for the first time in Baltimore County CZM process, there was a director's report that was also uploaded to and completed on the website to highlight some of the department's policies and processes of how they reviewed each of the issues that were submitted in the applications. In our analysis, each of these, it is important to note that the department took more of a conservative approach. And then somewhat clinical, because there was very little input, public input, that the department was able to go through. Therefore, it was essential to apply a uniform method to the requested changes, which focused on consistency to the master plan, changes in the area, changes to the existing and surrounding zoning, as well as the land uses and public infrastructure. For the most part, the zoning classifications seem to fall into a couple of categories, which were commercial areas, employment designations, non-conforming uses, and the neighborhood districts. I would invite everybody and point you to the director's report to review sort of how we assessed those types of categories and those types of zoning applications and requests. Next slide, please. As we entered into March, we began the planning board's hearings. As everyone may know, we had two of the hearings conducted when the pandemic broke loose, and we had disrupted our process for doing the public hearings with the board. We had to adapt to a new schedule and a format to receive public comments, as well as these work sessions that will be coming this week and the following week. In order to meet our statutory requirements, we outlined a process to provide written comments prior to the pandemic through email and written comments. But we created a new crowdsourcing application online so everybody could have another opportunity or another way in which to provide their comments. Next slide, please. To date, we received over 2,000 comments identifying their positions by each of the issues. As you can see from this graphic, the largest number of comments were in the 3rd district. However, we have them listed and outlined by in each issue, as well as each and every district. As part of the process, next slide, please. I'm sorry. As part of the process, we also sent over 10,000 notifications to either impacted or adjacent property owners, as well as posted each of the properties with signs. The impacted properties, as you may know, are the properties that were requesting a change or there was a change requested. And then the adjacent properties were exactly what you can figure. They were the adjacent properties to those requested changes to the zoning. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, there were over 400 signs posted to notify everybody and put out the information to make sure everybody knew what was going on. Next slide, please. And then finally, as I mentioned earlier, the new application was instituted to address the ability for individuals not only to comment, but allow others to see other comments that have been submitted to our website. We continued to have these comments, and we downloaded them on April 10th. We concluded our public comment period so we could download the information and provide a summary of all those comments by issue number and by district. And I will point to the website. It actually outlines every one of the issues and every one of the comments that were submitted to the department, so the public can see what was received from all the residents and businesses and community members throughout the county. At this point in time, I would like to turn this over to the chairman to, based on all the comments that we received, and go over by district the summaries that are presented by the staff.
Thank you very much, Pete. I really want to thank Pete and the staff of the Department of Planning for making the adjustments required for the members of the Planning Board to do our work. Our work is not done. Over the course of the next several days, we will host work sessions where we will review all of the items that have been sequestered in the various districts. To that end, the board members have been called upon to review these 2,000 comments that Pete mentioned. And also to that end, this board is conducting this under a level of transparency that may not have ever been seen had we been doing this in a traditional way. This event is being live streamed, and our work sessions will be live streamed as well. For those who may be interested in viewing the work sessions, you can visit the Planning Board website to see the dates and times of those sessions. Why are we continuing to move forward with this at this time and not kind of waiting until we might be able to get together? Well, there is a legislative requirement that we complete our work and submit our recommendations to the council by May the 31st of 2020. We have to give the staff time based upon our recommendations to complete maps to be submitted to the council for their work. As Pete mentioned, I also want to thank all of those who have participated in the process and the importance of stakeholder input from our citizens, our community groups, our advocates for property owners, which would be the attorneys and the developers, our business owners. We want to thank you for participating in this process. I want to specifically thank, in this setting, the members of the Planning Board. Several of them are participating in this session this evening. However, for this session, I will be sharing the information and providing the input. The members will have opportunities to speak during the subsequent work sessions. But I want to thank Robert Baer, representing Council District 6, Christina Berzins, representing the County Executive, Nancy Hafford, also representing the County Executive, Paul Hartman, Council District 5, Mark Heckman, Council District 2, Jonathan Herbst, the County Executive, Stephen Heinel, County Executive, Scott Halupka, County Executive, Wayne McGinnis, Council District 3, Howard Perlow, County Executive, myself, Scott Phillips, the Chairman of the Board, Catherine Pinero, County Executive, Robert Schweitzer, Council District 7, Todd Warren, Council District 1, and Kathy Wolfson, Council District 4. This evening, I am going to go through each one of the districts and highlight those items that have been set aside either because of the level of interest or because a member of the board has requested that these items be sequestered. These are the items that we will discuss in more further detail during our work sessions. So let's start with Council District 1. In the first Council District, 35 comprehensive zoning map process issues were filed with the Department of Planning. Issues 1001 to 1020 were filed by the public or their representatives. Issues 1021 to 1026 were filed by the Planning Board, and issues 1027 to 1035 were filed by Councilman Tom Quirk. The total acreage of issues in District 1 is 531.82 acres, with 99.84% in the urban areas and the remaining 0.16% in the rural areas. Our public input. Prior to the current restrictions involving our public gatherings, the First District Planning Board CZMP public hearing was held on March the 3rd, 2020. During the hearing, 75 constituents testified either in support or opposition of specific CZMP requests. Issues 1021 and 1022 were raised by the Planning Board to rezone these properties from residential office to business local to allow for additional parking in Catonsville Village. We received 23 comments, of which there are 3 supporters in favor of the request and 20 strongly opposing. Those in support of the requested zoning want to support economic vitality in the Catonsville Commercial Revitalization District and the newly designated Catonsville Arts and Entertainment District. Those in opposition primarily are concerned about the intrusion of commercial uses into the residential area. The opposition's comments also point to existing underutilized parking lots, flooding issues, environmental constraints, narrow streets, and lack of community participation in the discussion of the use of this area for public parking. The Greater Patapsco Community Association raised issues 1017, seeking to downzone the 64.75 acres north of Johnny Cake Road from BMIM, which is Business Major Industrial Major, DR 3.5, Density Residential, and OT, Office and Technology, to DR 3.5 and RC6, Rural Conservation and Residential. Issue 1035, raised by Council, is adjacent to 1017 and was raised without zoning request. Existing and requested zoning is OT, DR 3.5. Both issues 1017 and 1035 received 20 comments, of which there was only 1 comment in opposition to the request and 19 in support of the proposed downzoning. All comments in favor concurred with RC6 zoning resource protection to maintain low density development, the need for environmental protection, more impervious surfaces, existing narrow roads and steep slopes to preserve and to enhance quality of community life, concerns on increase in traffic on Johnny Cake and Dogwood Roads, and overcrowded schools. Issue 1012 requested to rezone a property from DR 5.5 to BLAS, Business Local Automotive Service, on Hammers Ferry Road. Lansdowne Improvement Association and the community strongly opposed the rezoning and testified against the issue at the hearing. Additionally, we received 50 comments in opposition and 3 in support. The opposition's comments pointed to existing gas stations in the surrounding area, environmental hazards, increases in traffic, safety issues, and a negative impact on existing small businesses. Issue 1009 requested to rezone from residential office to BL, Business Local. 18 letters were received in support of the request and 3 in opposition. Those in opposition have noted that the change in the use will destroy the residential, historic, appropriate scale, and character of the neighborhood. The supporters believe the zoning change is reflective of the neighborhood and that the applicants are supportive community residents. It is this change in heart. If this is to change in heart, if so, then this may need to be modified. I'm sorry. Issue 1006 seeks to rezone from MLIM, Manufacturing Light Industrial Major, MLDR2, to MHIM, Manufacturing Heavy Industrial Major. The subject property is a warehouse facility in the Halethorpe Farms Road. There were 17 comments in opposition to the rezoning request and 1 comment in support. All expressed concerns with heavy traffic through Selma Avenue and heavy industrial zoning in close proximity to existing residents. Jeff, let me ask you. 1001. Yes. Issue 1001 seeks to rezone from DR2 and DR 3.5 to DR1. The subject property is the Rolling Road Golf Course. There were 10 comments in opposition to the request and 3 in support. The golf course members and adjacent residents have expressed concerns in downsizing the property that would devalue the club. Those in opposition expressed concerns with overdevelopment and the capacity of schools in the area, traffic and flooding issues. Let's move on to District 2. In Councilmanic District 2, 40 total CZB issues were filed. 27 issues were filed by the public or their representatives, and 13 issues were filed by Councilman Izzy Patoka. The total acreage of all of the issues was, of the 40 issues, is 512.66 acres, with 91% in urban areas and the remaining 1% in rural areas. The public input from Councilmanic District 2. Once again, we were able to hold a CZMP hearing on March the 5th. During the hearing, 79 constituents testified either in support or opposition of specific CZMP requests. There was significant community opposition to issues 2011, which seeks to rezone from business local BL to business local automotive services, BLAS. 12 constituents spoke in opposition to the request, while 2 were in support. An additional 51 comments, comment forms, and a petition with over 300 signatures was submitted, all expressing opposition to the requested zoning. There were 59 comments relating to environmental, health, traffic, and safety, and noise raised during the testimonies or through comment from their form submissions. Issue 2025 seeks to rezone the property from business major commercial, community core, BMCCC, to community business, CB. 12 people testified at the hearing or submitted letters or emails in support of the zoning request, while 2 opposed the request. Issue 2-022 along Kingsley Avenue seeks to rezone a vacant parcel zone DR 3.5 to BM to be used by the adjacent car dealership. There were 14 comments in opposition to the rezoning request, and other than the petitioner representative, there were no public comments in support. The comments expressed concern with water runoff and flooding, excessive noise, and other quality of life issues. Issue 2003 seeks to rezone 2.4 acres in the Pikesville Commercial Revitalization District, CRD, from office residential 1 or OR1 to residential apartment elevator 2, RAE2. The petitioner has proposed an affordable housing apartment building. At the public hearing, 8 testified in support and 3 in opposition to the rezoning request. Subsequent to the hearing, 4 letters or emails were received in support of the requested zoning. The Petitioners and supporters argue that this area of Pikesville would benefit from the affordable housing and additional residents to frequent the commercial revitalization district. Those in opposition claim the area is saturated with this type of housing and could create more traffic in the Pikesville commercial revitalization district. Issues 2-006, the Suburban Club property in Pikesville. Issue 2-006 seeks to rezone a portion of the property from DR2 to RAE1 and BMCCC3, supported, BMCCC3 supported the zoning request, 7 opposed the issue. Those in opposition argue that the property may become too dense and or increase flooding problems in the area. Issue 2-026 seeks to rezone the entire 144 acres of the Suburban Club property from DR2 to Resource Conservation 8, RC8. 3 were in support of this rezoning. Supporters expressed the need for a master plan for the property should it cease to be a golf course and country club. Issues 2-029 and 2-030 were submitted by Councilman Izzy Patoka. The requests seek to rezone 2 properties from Business Roadside Automotive Service, or BRAS, to Business Roadside BR. Both issues are along the Main Street portion of the Reisterstown Road at Reisterstown's Southern Gateway. The adjacent community has expressed concerns with the vacant properties over the past several years, and they argue that the gas stations are no longer viable at this location. The surrounding community supports the issues, with 8 individuals testifying on behalf of the community. At this time, no opposition to the rezoning request has been submitted for either issue. In the 2nd Councilmatic District, issues 2032 through 2040 are County Council issues requesting Neighborhood Commons, or DR1NC classification. The land involved in those areas is owned by either the Baltimore County or is within a homeowner association open space. 9 comments were received in support of the request and 3 were received in opposition. That concludes the comments for District 2. We'll move on to Councilmatic District 3. There were 64 CZMP issues filed. 27 issues were filed by the public or their representatives. 1 by the planning board by a planning board member, and 36 issues were filed by the councilman, Wade Koch. The total acreage of all 40 issues is 1,454.89 acres, with 34.41% in urban areas and the remaining 65.59% in rural areas. A total of 948 comments were received for the 3rd district. The public input. Issue 3-014, which seeks to rezone from rural residential, or RC5, to business roadside, BR, for a property on Carroll Manor Road, had the most input of all the issues in the 3rd district. A total of 442 comments were received in opposition to the request. A petition was also submitted containing a list of 205 names, also in opposition to the request. The largest concern is the change in use from rural to commercial. Other concerns are traffic and environmental impact due to well and septic. Similarly, issue 3-032 seeks to rezone the property from agricultural, RC2, to manufacturing light, ML. The subject property is the current location of the Boring Volunteer Fire Department. 168 comments were received on this issue. 160 comments were received in opposition to the request, and only 8 comments were received in support of the request. The largest concern is the change in use to a manufacturing zone in the rural area. Issue 3-031, the Oregon Grill, received 66 comments. The comments refer to the use of the property for events and note either support or opposition to that issue. Of the 66 comments received, 13 were in favor of allowing events on the site, and 53 opposed any change to the current zoning and the current use. Issue 3-062 was submitted by Councilman Koch. The proposed zoning change is to downzone the Stella Maris property in Timonium. The submittal of 2 residential development concept plans prompted the issue to be submitted by the County Council. The department has received 48 comments, 47 in favor of the proposed downzoning, with 1 in opposition. The department received the major concerns, are increased traffic, loss of open space, and increased demand on schools, especially Delaney High School. Issue 3027 is to add the CCC overlay district to the current BM zone for Timonium Square Shopping Center on York Road. 36 comments were received, 35 in opposition to the request, and only 1 in support of the requested zoning. Traffic and safety were the #1 concerns with the comments of opposition. Issues 3001 is petitioning to rezone from RC7 to RC2. The owner is seeking to regain density that was lost in a prior CZMP process. 32 comments of opposition to the request were received, with environmental concerns and increasing density being the largest concern. Lastly, issues 3039, 3041, 3042, 3051, 3058, 3059, and 3060 were submitted by the councilman to rezone the properties to RC50. RC50 does not allow commercial solar facilities. 45 comments were received for these 7 issues. 8 comments were in opposition to the request and supported leaving the zoning as is. 37 comments were received to change the zoning to RC50 to prevent solar projects from being developed. We're now moving on to the summary for District 4. There were 19 total CZMP issues filed. 17 issues were filed by the public or their representatives, and 2 issues were filed by Councilman Julian Jones. The total acreage of all 19 issues is 110.58 acres, with 71.74% in rural areas and the remaining 28.26% in urban areas. 17 of the total 19 issues filed are requesting upzoning to allow for higher value or more dense use. And 2 filed by community groups are requesting downzoning of properties located within their boundaries. Public input received. 4-041 seeks to rezone 15.6 acres of land from RC4 to MLIM to allow for a contractor equipment storage. The issue boundary is located at the northeast corner of Stocksdale Avenue and I-795. The property is currently undeveloped and is situated outside of the urban demarcation line, or the URDL, as we refer to it. The property is surrounded by residential development. The Department of Planning received 7 comments expressing opposition to the rezoning request. All comments were related to environmental and health, traffic and safety, and access concerns. 4-013, filed by the Wyndham Commons Condominium Association, seeks to downzone a quarter acre, approximately 0.46 acres of land from DR 10.5 to DR 3.5. The issue boundary includes 2 undeveloped lots located at Wyndham Circle on the Tollgate community. To date, 72 of the 96 total units have been developed. The petitioner filed the issue based on restrictive covenants agreement. The petitioner filed the issue based on a restrictive covenant agreement entered into in 2002 between the members of the Tollgate community and the developer, that if the property is not developed as contemplated herein, the subject property would revert to its original 3.5 density zoning. The Department of Planning received 7 comments from the residents of the Wyndham Commons Condominium Association in support of the rezoning request. Log issue 4-007 seeks to rezone 4.1 acres of land from MLR to OR2 to permit townhouse development. The issue boundary is located at 7324 Dogwood Road near the Diamond Ridge Golf Course. The Department of Planning received 5 comments from the public regarding this issue. 1 comment was in favor of the requested zoning, but the remaining 4 were all opposed to the request. The opposition is from the Greater Patapsco Community Association, who suggested that the Planning Board recommend DR1 or DR 3.5 zoning for the subject property to be consistent with the surrounding neighborhood. Log issue 4-012 seeks to rezone 2.1 acres of land from RO and DR 16 to BMAS to accommodate a convenience store and fuel service station. The property is located at 9600 Liberty Road at the corner of Liberty Road and Owings Mills Boulevard. The property is improved with a structure known as Coed House, which is on the Baltimore County Preliminary Landmarks List, item number BA00015 on the landmarks list. The Department of Planning received 5 comments from the public regarding this request. The 1 comment in favor was from the petitioner modifying his request from BMAS to BM. The remaining 4 comments were all opposed to the rezoning request, mainly because of the historic status of the structure on the subject property. Log issue 4-017, filed by Lionswood Homeowners Association, seeks to downzone 5.44 acres of land from DR 16 to DR 3.5. The issue boundary is located at 9307 Lyons Mill Road at the corner of Lyons Mill Road and Winfield Drive. The Community Association raised the issue after a development plan, enclave at Lyons Mill Road, was proposed on the subject site for below market rate multifamily housing comprised of 53 units. The development plan was denied and is currently on the Board of Appeals. The Lionswood community has expressed strong opposition during the development plan approval process. The Department of Planning received 2 public comments in favor and 3 comments opposed to the rezoning request. We'll move now to District 5. The 5th district has a total of 79 issues. Of those, 33 were filed by the public, 5 were filed by the Planning Board, and 40 were filed by the 5th District Councilman. Issues are primarily located inside the URDL. The majority of the public issues are requesting some form of upzoning, although there are a few that are requesting downzoning to preserve green space. The majority of the planning board issues and council issues were raised as same to same, with no specific requested zoning being different from the existing. There were also several issues raised as neighborhood commons, or NC, by the planning board and the county council. The public input we received, starting with log issue 5001, is as follows. 5001 was filed by a resident of the Southland Hills community. The property is the vacant Presbyterian home, which is surrounded by single-family residents. There was a former PUD proposal that did not come to fruition. Now, there is a new development proposal in a conceptual stage for single-family houses. There were 14 comments in opposition to the zoning change and 9 comments supporting the request to downzone in order to reduce the development in the area and wanting the property to remain green space through the purchase by the county. Log issue 5036 was raised by the planning board. The county-owned property in the Towson Manor Village community was recently developed as a passive park. The issue was raised to change the zoning from DR 10.5 to DR 1 NC. There were 9 comments in favor of the request and no comments in opposition. Issue 5050. The development received substantial input from the community. It is a 14.61 acre parcel in the Stoneley Idlewild community, currently zoned DR 5.5. The request was for 5.5, which is the same as it currently is, the same to same. 25 comments were opposed to keeping the 5.5 and wanted it downzoned primarily because of school overcrowding, particularly at Towson High School. 1 comment was received in favor of the request. Issue 5-056 was raised by the county council. It includes the commercial area along York Road that borders the Rogers Forge community on the west and the Stoneley, Ansley communities on the east. The community would like to keep this a neighborhood shopping area and prohibit new drive-through businesses from being developed. The issue proposed to change the recommended zoning, maintaining the existing BL zoning on the west due to the number of properties that could become non-conforming as a result of the CB zone. There were 32 comments in support of the request and 1 in opposition. Issue 5062 was raised also by the county council. The issue is roughly 6 acres of properties along York Road, Towson Town Boulevard, and Willow Avenue that are zoned various commercial districts and office zones. There is an auto repair business that is operating under a non-conforming use on Willow Avenue that would like to make some improvements for which it would need business zoning. The department received 35 responses to this issue, with 15 being in favor of the rezoning request and 20 being opposed. Most of the responses were concerned about where intense development might encroach upon and into the Towson Manor Village community. Issue 5-011 was raised by Community Enterprises, Inc. It is a 4.22 acre parcel located at 4299 Fitch Avenue. The property was zoned ML for years and was downzoned in the 2016 process. The property owners were seeking to regain their industrial zoning so that they are no longer a non-conforming use. Staff recommends that the zoning be returned to MLIM. Responses from the community consisted of 29 in favor of the rezoning request and 2 opposed. There were many issues raised in Perry Hall by private parties for upzoning, particularly on Bel Air Road. There were also many same-to-same and NC issues raised by the County Council. The department received a position statement on each issue within their boundaries from the Perry Hall Community Association. Their response reads as follows. For issues 5002, 5005, 5008, 5009, 5014, 5019, 5021, 5028, 5033, 5040, 5041, 5061, 5063, 5067, 5076. The association opposes. For issues 5010, 5012, 5023, 5026. The association supports residential office. Issue 5022, they support BL. For issues 5031, 5046, 5052, 5053, 5057, 5058, 5060, 5065, 5069, 5075, they support the request. For issues 5035, the association supports rezoning to DR2H. For 5037, they support BLR. 5039, they support the existing zoning. 5043, they support DR 5.5 to 3.5. 5047, they support DR 3.5. 5051, support with the exception of RC 55. 5071, they support BLR. 5073, they support, or excuse me, they oppose the request or recommend move to BL. Now that was our longest segment for District 5. I will now go over District 6 and District 7, and I will conclude with a few comments. In District 6, there were 44 issues filed, 28 issues filed by the public or their representatives, 1 issue by a planning board member, and 15 by County Council person Kathy Bevins. The total acreage of the 2020 CZMP 6th District request is 770.42 acres. The majority of those acres were for 2 issues, issue 6004 and 6026. A total of 121 comments were received on the 6th District Council zoning. In addition, there were 2 petitions submitted. Public input for District 6. The greatest number of comments were in opposition to issue 6026, requesting to rezone the 97 acres of RC5 and 17 acres of RC20 on 1201 Carroll Island Road, CP Crane Power Plant, to MH. 77 comments and a petition with 55 signatures were submitted in opposition. The site is currently being converted from a coal-fired power plant to a gas turbine power plant. The public comments highlighted that the fact that there is now a power plant on the portion of the site should not be justification for permitting additional heavy industrial development on the entire site. The power plant was built in the 1950s, and that now there is more attention on environmental protection, critical area law, and rural legacy, and the people have invested converting shore shacks, excuse me. I'll read that again. The people in the community have invested in converting shore shacks to nice homes. Comments also indicated the road capacity is not adequate and that there is plenty of industrial zoned land elsewhere in the area. A petition of 33 signatures was submitted in opposition to issue 6024, requesting rezoning of 2.37 acres at 1801 Taylor Avenue to BLAS to permit a convenience store and gas station. The concerns raised were for the impact of the proposed use on the safety and integrity of their residential neighborhood. Specific concerns were for the size of the business, noise and light pollution, traffic, trash, rodents, and runoff. 13 comments were received in support of issue 6008, requesting a change from RO to BL on Old Hartford Road to overcome the limitation of 25% medical so as to permit more medical use in the building. The comments were a testimony on how valuable the service of the existing medical providers are at that location. There was one letter of opposition expressing concern for more traffic. Issue 6004 received 5 letters of support and 2 letters in opposition. The request is to rezone 465 acres on Earls Road from industrial zoning to RC 8-5. From industrial zoning RC 8. 5 comments suggested there is greater need for the land to provide environmental benefits given all the large-scale development that has occurred in the area. The opponents indicated the proposed rezoning would decrease the utility of the property and be inconsistent with county economic and master plan goals. There were 5 comments opposing issue 6009. The request is to rezone approximately 2 acres from DR 3.5 to BMB for expansion of the Long Beach Marina on Chester Road. The opponents expressed concern about traffic and encroachment into the neighborhood. The Bowleys Quarter Improvement Association suggested instead of BMB that it partly be rezoned to BMYC and the remainder be a residential buffer. The remaining petitions in the 6th district received less than 5 comments or no comments at all. Issue 3-013 is to request rezoning of 5.19 acres on Lochraven Boulevard to RO and received 3 comments opposing the impact on the adjacent residential properties and questioning the applicability of the zoning. The supportive comments indicated that the area has changed and that RO is appropriate. Issue 6-035 received 3 comments in favor of the request to change DR 3.5 to RC5 to be consistent with the Chesapeake Bay protection. Issue 6-15 received 2 requests opposing a request to rezone 0.5 acres on Lemmings Lane from DR 3.5 to RO. The concern expressed was encroachment into the residential area. 13 other issues received 1 comment each. Issues getting 1 supportive comment include 6-001, 6-003, 6-029, 6-038, 6039, 6040, 6041, 6042, 6043, and 6044. Issues receiving 1 opposing comment include 6006, 6011, and 6018. In the 7th Congressional District, the Council District, thank you. I'm thinking about our congressional race. In the 7th Council District, there were 27 CZMP issues filed. 25 issues were filed by the public or their representatives. 1 issue was filed by the Planning Board and 1 was filed by the County Council. The total acreage of all 27 issues is 573.74 acres with 38.38% in rural areas and 61.62% in rural areas. Let me say that again, misspoke. The total acreage of all 27 issues is 573.74 acres, with 38.38% in urban areas and 61.62% in rural areas. The public input received. The 7th District Planning Board, CZMP, public hearing was scheduled for March the 31st. However, as we know, due to the coronavirus, we were unable to hold that hearing. As an alternative, constituents provided comments, and in total, there were 274 public comments, and over 650 constituents signed petitions or voted on issues through other means. There was significant community opposition to issue 7015, which seeks to rezone the Fort Howard Veterans Hospital site from Density Residential 1, or DR1, to Density Residential 5.5. There was also significant community opposition to 7017, which seeks to rezone an area of undeveloped land from Resource Conservation 20 to Resource Conservation 5, or RC5. And issue 7024 to rezone from Density Residential 3.5 to Business Local, or BL. Many of the comments related to development, use changes, environment and health, traffic and safety, and school capacity. Citizens also voiced concerns regarding open space, crime, and other issues. The following issues received the most comments and citizen input. A brief overview is given of each. Issue 7009 to 7012 all seek to downzone parcels of land on the Back River Neck Peninsula. These parcels range from 1.03 acres for issue 7012 to 15.55 acres for issue 7011. Issue 7009 to 7011 all seek to downzone from Density Residential 3.5 to Density Residential 2, or DR2, while the request for 7012 is to downzone from community business. A total of 27 comments were received on these 4 issues, with 21 in favor and 6 opposed. Citizens in favor of the downzoning request highlighted the need to preserve the environment and open space on the peninsula. Citizens also mentioned school overcrowding and infrastructure capacity in the area. Citizens in opposition mentioned the rights of developers and the need for more housing in the area to support local businesses. 2 of the other letters of opposition came from representatives for 2 developers for tracts of land associated with issue 7009 and 7011. Issue 7015 seeks to rezone the Fort Howard Veterans Administration site from Density Residential DR1 to Density Residential 5.5. The property was downzoned to its current DR1 classification during the 2016 CZMP cycle. All of the 127 comments received on this issue were opposed to rezoning the property, with the preliminary reasons given for opposition relating to development, environmental concerns, and school capacity. Residents also expressed hope for the site to be used to develop veterans in some capacity. A petition was also signed by concerned citizens in opposition to this request. Issue 7017 along Back River Neck Road and Riverview Road seeks to rezone 9.8 acre parcel of primarily forested land from Resource Conservation 20, or RC20, to Resource Conservation 5. Of the 40 comments received on this issue, 30 were opposed to the rezoning and 10 were in favor. The ones in opposition expressed concerns around the environment, infrastructure capacity, development, and other issues. Comments in favor express support for the current property owner to subdivide the property for their family members. Issue 7020 seeks to rezone 22.94 acres of density residential 1 or DO1 land in Dundalk to manufacturing light industrial major or MLIM. The site is located along Willow Spring Road and is currently used for manufacturing by Montebello Brands, Inc. The large tract of land was downzoned in 2004 from ML to MLIM to DR1. There were 3 comments on this issue, including 2 from community organizations voicing opposition to the proposed zoning change. The reason for opposition to this change include the need for more advanced planning and community input for any further development and concerns around the environment. Issue 7024 seeks to rezone 13.67 acres of land, known as the Eastern Yacht Club, from density residential 3.5 to business local or BL, or business maritime marina BMM. There were 13 public comments on this request, all in opposition to the change. The reasons cited by the citizens for opposing the rezoning include concerns around existing RV use on the property, change in the neighborhood character, and the effects a change in use could mean for the future development of the area. Finally, issue 7026 covers a 3.49 acre parcel of business local automotive service, or BLAS, which is a parcel in Turner Station. The zoning change request was put in by the planning board on behalf of the community and seeks to rezone a small area along Main Street to BL, eliminating the opposition for automotive services in this area. There were 12 public comments in favor of the rezoning and 1 comment that was neutral. The major themes expressed by citizens related to the environment include the environment, development, and community character. Residents expressed a desire for more businesses to locate in the area, but did not want gas stations or repair shops in this particular residential area. That concludes the summaries from the various districts. As we move forward and we move into our work sessions, which will begin tomorrow, once again, the schedule for our work sessions is on the Baltimore County Planning Board's website. What you've heard this evening will be reviewed and discussed by planning board members, and recommendations will come out of those issues that were raised. If you did not hear your issue specifically mentioned this evening, it does not mean that that issue will not be discussed during the work sessions. The way this will work is for those issues in which the members of the board have questions or concerns, they will be sequestered, and there will be a list of those issues for each district, and each night we will review those issues. For those issues where the planning board in its consensus agrees with the recommendations of the planning staff, those issues will move forward with a unanimous vote of consensus. We hope to wrap all of this up before the end of April. April 30th is the date that we would like to complete the work of the planning board and our decisions and our recommendations so that we can turn them over to the planning board staff so that they can prepare maps to be submitted to the county council by our due date of May the 31st. If there are questions that have come out of this evening based on what you heard, we would recommend that you call the Office of Baltimore County Planning Board, or excuse me, the Baltimore County Planning Department to address your issues. Those issues will be raised with the board. If there are any issues or concerns, we will review those and respond accordingly. Once again, we thank you for working with us as we've adjusted both our methods for collecting information and our process for reviewing and discussing. But at the end of the day, just know that you have 15 individuals who have been selected by your elected officials to act on behalf of the citizens of Baltimore County. And we take, while this is a volunteer role, we take this very seriously. So again, I want to thank all the members of the staff that have helped us in our ability to adjust and adapt. I want to thank the board members for your hard work who have gone through these over 2,000 comments and will continue to work over the next several evenings to come to our conclusions and recommendations to be submitted to the county council. I want to thank our county executive and all of our council members for entrusting us with these responsibilities. With that, say thank you and good night. And for those that join us tomorrow, we look forward to having you participate in the process virtually. Thank you.